So can you tell me a little bit about the objection from the age of the Earth in regards to starlight? So obviously, if a star is, billions of light years away, millions of light years away or whatever, then it would take millions of years for that light to reach us. That's the argument. And the young Earth creationist response is something like, well, God maybe created that in transit. To which my reply was, well, that would be fine if starlight were just like a steady stream, but it actually records like a history for us, like a supernova and things like that. Isn't that like God creating sort of like a false history of that star? How do you reconcile that from a young Earth perspective?
Yeah, so that wouldn't be a problem for a young Earth per se, but for a young universe. And people who are not experts in physics often use that argument. I would say that a person who's an expert in relativity would not use that argument because it's not good science. But I'll explain why. But then the counter argument that some Christians have thought of is that God made the light already on its way. God made the light beams. And I would agree with you. I don't think that's a good argument for the very reason that you said. Because light carries information within that information about its source, about what happened. We see stars explode. Now, if God just made a beam of light with pictures of an explosion of a star that never existed and of an explosion that never happened, then that means God's making all these fictional movies out there. And no one doubts that God has the power to do that. But I would say that's inconsistent with the character of God as revealed in Scripture. God is not the author of confusion or of deception. He allows us to deceive ourselves. We're masterful at that. But he doesn't go out of his way to deceive us like that. So I don't think that's the answer. But it turns out that Einstein actually discovered what the answer to that is. And it turns out that the speed of light is very different from other speeds, everyday speeds. It's a maximum speed limit of the universe. It's a little bit strange. And space and time are not quite what a lot of people assume. And these are things that Einstein discovered. And in light of his discoveries, we now know that it doesn't take billions of years necessarily for light to get from the most distant galaxies in the universe to Earth. In fact, from the light's point of view, the trip is instantaneous. If you could ride on a beam of light, it would take no time at all to get from the farthest galaxy in the universe to the Earth. And that's something that Einstein discovered. And people say, yes, but what about from Earth's point of view? Well, it turns out Einstein discovered that there are different ways of synchronizing clocks. Synchronizing clocks means they read the same time at the same time. And we've seen that in the old spy movies where they say, let's all synchronize our watches, making sure they read the same time. And that's easy if everybody's in the same place. But what if one clock is a million light years away? How do you know if it's synchronized with a clock on Earth? Whether it's a man-made clock or some kind of artificial phenomenon that can be used as a clock, how do you know it's synchronized? And Einstein pointed out you can't. All you can do is you can make certain stipulations and say, I'm going to call this synchronized, and somebody else can call something else synchronized. And what that means is that the speed of light in one direction can be as fast as infinity. And that's weird because we know that if you bounce a signal off the moon and bring it back, when we landed on the moon in 1969, we left reflectors there, and you can bounce lasers off of those and time the signal, and it'll take 3 seconds every time. You bounce to be a little bit less. To send a signal to the moon and bring it back, 3 seconds. Most people assume it takes us 1.5 seconds to go out, 1.5 seconds to come back. Einstein says you can't assume that. It could take all 3 seconds to go out and 0 to come back. And there's nothing in physics that prevents that. And people say, why would it be different? Why would it be the same? It turns out Einstein recognized that the speed of light in any one direction is a matter of convention. It's something that human beings get to decide, and that tells us how to synchronize clocks. And anyway, that's kind of the elevator pitch. It's what's more complicated than that. But I do have some articles on a website at biblicalscienceinstitute.com where you can get the details on this. And it'll show you from the physics of Einstein that it doesn't take any time at all necessarily to get the light from the most distant galaxies to the Earth, in which case we're actually seeing the universe in real time. And I believe that's the convention the Bible uses. So distant starlight is not a challenge for a young universe. And for people who are experts in physics, they know that. It's the laymen who think they know something about physics that think that that's a powerful argument, but it really isn't.
Yeah, it felt like a powerful argument when you don't know anything about what you're talking about. Like when I used to use it, it always felt like a strong argument. That's really interesting, though. I hadn't heard that.